Okay, welcome to the final event in our week-long events for Being Human. This is called Pop and Politics at PCL. First of all, just for those of you watching this on a stream, it's not so useful, but for those of you in the room, if any of you need the toilet, it's straight up those stairs across the corridor, but not so useful for people if you're watching this at home. I mentioned Being Human a minute ago. Being Human have been really good to us over the years. Being Human have funded us for 3 years to do different events, some in this space, some in different spaces around the university. And Being Human is, as it says here, a festival of the humanities. It's a festival of public engagement, and it's a festival that really tries to get people involved in the humanities throughout the country. As I said, we've had 3 years of doing this, a lot of them in this space. And it's been very useful to us, so thanks to them. They came down yesterday to see Martin Stevenson play, and they were very pleased, I have to say. In terms of how we've used Being Human, this is what we call the Soho Poly. This space, those of you again in the room, you can have a look around at this later on. There's various things to look at in the room. But this space was known as the Soho Poly between 1972 and 1990. And all sorts of exciting events took place down here. When you came in, you saw a lot of photos here. These are all Nobby Clark photographs taken in this space back in the 1970s and 1980s. If you go and have a look around at some of these people there, Bob Hoskins and other luminaries of the period, it's an amazing testimony to all those photos took place over here. All those fantastic stage sets were made in this corner over here. And part of the project we've been working on, along with my colleague Matt Morrison, the person who actually discovered this space, rediscovered the space, should I say, back in 2012, is to reinvigorate the space, reinvigorate the Soho Poly. When we talk about the Soho Poly, one of our watchwords is disrupt the everyday. And what we mean by that is the Soho Poly ethos was it was lunchtime theatre. So people came at lunchtime to see theatre. It was anti-elitist. People could come along, they didn't have to book a babysitter, didn't have to dress up. They could come along and see lunchtime theatre, 40, 50 minutes long, in a very democratic sense. We've taken that sort of concept and run with it a little bit, and we've said, actually, disrupting your everyday with culture is a really important concept. It's good for your mental health, but it's just good fun as well. So we've run with this idea in various ways by creating this disrupt your everyday concept, and we've put on a series of events at lunchtimes involving poetry, involving theatre. We've put on some what we call ghost gigs. We've got a number of bootleg recordings of concerts that took place throughout the university, and we put these on the day they took place, in as far as possible in the space they took place, as a sort of a celebration and commemoration of that, and they've been really good social events. The next one we've got is the Redskins playing on the 13th, and they're well known for their sort of what we call a skinhead socialist soul, which might be really useful the day after the election. We'll have to see. This year, Being Human's theme was Discoveries and Secrets. To get the money, you have to pitch to their theme, pitch what they're after. So what Matt and I did for Being Human this year was what we called Dig Deeper. And what Matt had discovered, the Soho Poly period in 1972, we will look beyond that to its prehistory. And we found out something really interesting about the space. First and foremost, it was an arts workshop. So this space down here was a really important space for all sorts of things. Some of you will have come in and walked past the posters on the ground floor, the posters of Cream, Fleetwood Mac, Robert Wyatt's Soft Machine, all these sort of bands. All those posters were produced almost where I'm standing now by people on the screen printing machine. Where Jonathan's sitting over there streaming is where it was all the photographs, the darkroom for photography took place. Really interesting sort of history of the space. The room over there we've dedicated for the purpose of this sort of mini exhibition as about the arts workshop. And if you go into that room, you'll see all sorts of photographs of the arts workshop as it was in late 60 and 1970, around that period of time. The image on the screen now is one from that period. You can see the door, you can see, not that much different to when Matt discovered it, probably in 1972 it looks in some ways, but it was a space where all sorts of things actually went on. When we started to look at that, we also found that a group called Polyfolk used to use this for their Polytechnic folk evenings, or folk sometimes in the day, sometimes in the evening. Here's the arts workshop. Last year or the year before last, Matt and I brought somebody down here called Dusty Pulver. And Dusty Pulver was the head of Polyfolk back in 1969, 1970. And Dusty Pulver is someone who'd had 3 or 4 strokes. And before he came down, he lives down on the south coast now, he said to Matt and I, I'm not sure what I'll be like when I come here. I'm in my 70s. I walk with a stick. I've had these strokes. I have problems speaking sometimes. And he came down here and he became alive again. And he was telling us all these stories. He told us about how Paul Simon walked down those steps one day, then walked out again, didn't stay. He told us about the days when, another story actually tied into this. There's some pictures over there when you look at the musical history section of the exhibition. You'll see 2 pictures, 2 photos. One's the contact sheet, one's a photograph of Nick Mason and Roger Waters rehearsing. Both of them were students at Regent Street Polytechnic. Both of them went on to form Pink Floyd. But that picture, so Nick Mason told me when I took him down here, was taken in this room. So this room was used for all sorts of exciting things. Dusty then tells me, he told me it slightly differently. He said, Roger used to come down here. I said, I know Roger comes down here. Roger Waters said, no. Roger's Sid Barrett's real name. So Sid Barrett would have been down here. What a space. So the musical history of the university is quite well known, generally. These are some, I put on this, for the purpose of this PowerPoint, some posters that aren't upstairs, just so people might not have seen them. So Long John Baldry. The Brian Auger Trinity with Julie Driscoll. Julie Driscoll's on the wall over there, Wheels on Fire singer. That picture's taken of backstage on the ground floor. Where the cafe is now was the backstage area. So that's Julie Driscoll in the backstage area up there. But then we return to Polyfolk. As I say, Polyfolk started in this room, but Polyfolks would start doing things around the university, using different spaces. They hired the Polytechnic, the main venue, to put on events, like this one with the Straubs and Magna Carta. They did an event at the Roundhouse. The Polytechnic venue was a really important venue generally at that time, so sometimes Polyfolk would graduate into those areas as well. I like this because it just reminds me of, I used to watch some Saturday morning TV years ago, and it reminds me of that sort of look of it. But that's the Polyfolk membership card at the time in 1970. Fantastic looking thing, fantastic haircuts. A bit, Danilo sees that in Hoxton all the time these days. But a lot of the history we talk about is all about the 1960s and early 70s. It's all about Pink Floyd, which is great, and The Who, and Fleetwood Mac, and all the great bands we played over there. But along with a colleague of mine, Alex Hancock, over here, and with the archives, I don't think the archives are here, but Anna McNally and Elaine and others, we started to look at this and say, well, actually, we're spending so much time talking about the 60s. A lot of the students don't know anything about the 60s. A lot of our staff, well, some of our staff know about the 60s, but not many of the staff know about the 60s. So we looked at a slightly different project. And I was really pleased with this PowerPoint, because as an academic, you use PowerPoints all the time, but I don't often use animation. And that, I'm not a scientist, I'm a law lecturer, but that is apparently the symbol for the centre of gravity. And what we tried to do with this project, to do with Alex, is shift the centre of gravity from the 1960s to the 1970 to 1992 period. So actually to talk about the Polytechnic of Central London. And the Polytechnic of Central London was actually a really radical place. I was a student at the Polytechnic of Central London. I came as a postgraduate student in 1988. And I'll talk about the bands I saw here maybe in a little while. But part of this project was to relocate and recenter our history away from that sort of 1960s. And this group of slides, photographs, images on the wall there, are it's the gig list of all the gigs that took place between 1970 and 1992. This is what Alex found as part of his research. I'd started the project, and then we got Alex, with some funding we got, to come and do this project for us. But we're really trying to look at some of these gigs and what took place. Now, the ones in yellow are all the ones that were benefit gigs. So these are gigs that were for anti-apartheid, or Rock Against Racism, or the Terence Higgins Trust, or all the various different things at the time. Because those days, the PCL was a radical place, and the students were very radical anyway. But in many ways, they were radical times. The Redskins Ghost gig we're doing next month was an anti-apartheid gig at the time, for example. I want to return to that now, because originally when we started this project, I was using the date of the 5th of August 1976 as my key point of departure. Does anyone know why I've picked that date, the 5th of August 1976? It was that long, hot summer. You're probably in the paddling pool if you were alive then. You remember it? Probably a rocket ice lolly, something like that. No, 5th of August 1976, that was the date that Eric Clapton got on stage in Birmingham and said Enoch was right. Enoch Powell being the conservative politician who talked about the rivers of blood in an anti-immigration speech. Now, Eric Clapton, the same Eric Clapton, had been in that room next door in the Polytechnic 8 years before for this gig. He was the guitarist in Cream, the lead singer in Cream, a very important band of the time. But that gig is really important in our space because that's the first time Jimi Hendrix appeared on stage in 1968 on stage with Cream and blew Clapton and the rest of them off the stage. 8 years later, Clapton, who'd famously adapted, taken black music, I Shot the Sheriff and other things, was talking about Enoch was right. Now this really, Clapton's statement there was really the catalyst for the Rock Against Racism movement. Before I talk about Rock Against Racism, actually, this is just a slide of some of the gigs that are on there, to show the sense of what type of events were taking place. So we had Theatre of Hate for No Nukes. You know, the CND was a big deal in the 80s. Seems like a long time ago. One of my favourites, I come from Birmingham, the Au Pairs are a Birmingham band, doing a Rock Against Racism gig at PCL. And John Cooper Clarke doing another No Nukes gig as well, which is a great photo Alex found in the British Library from the NME, and it's by Antoine Corbin, who did Control for Joy Division, a lot of the Joy Division sleeves. So it's we should try and get the original on that sometime. But Rock Against Racism. Red Saunders started Rock Against Racism on the back of what Clapton has said, and they started campaigns in the NME and various places. I've written a bit about this in the little handout you can all take away with you later on. And it grew really quickly. And all sorts of gigs took place. Famously, I think Steve said you were at it. Where's Steve gone? There was a very famous one in Victoria Park in '78, I think. And they had a new version of that to commemorate it in 2008, which I went to more recently. I was only 10 when the first one took place. So I wasn't at that, unfortunately. But the Rock Against Racism was a really important thing. And Polytechnic of Central London had a number of events around that. In the sort of final section of the exhibition, if you want to call it an exhibition, there's a whole section over there around Rock Against Racism, about student activism, and a little bit about Pete Shelley that I'm going to return to in a second. There's a photo in the corner over there of Jimmy Percy from Sham 69 with Tony James, who's in a band called Generation X. They were playing at our new Cavendish Street site with Misty and Roots. At the time, a lot of sort of punk and post-punk bands, people forget how linked they were into reggae and other things like that. You forget how important to bands like Public Image, a lot of the quite left-field reggae stuff was in the late 1970s. So there actually was a lot of coalitions of these sort of things going on. This is quite a famous photo. It's from Sid Shelton's photography of the time, because this gig was renowned, and there was somebody who came yesterday who was at the gig who was telling me all about it, because it was invaded by a group of skinheads, and when one of the lift shafts over in New Cavendish Street, they had to be fought back by anti-fascist action. And when we did a New Order Ghost gig in New Cavendish Street last year, we put that photo and a little story about it by the lift shaft to say this is the symbolic lift shaft that racism was defended against all those years ago. But to return to buzzcocks, for the southern leg in Victoria Park, it was The Clash, and it was Steel Pulse, and Michael Riley from Steel Pulse was hoping to be here today, but he's not here, unfortunately. But, Steel Pulse and The Clash and a number of other bands. But in Manchester, it was Buzzcocks and Steel Pulse and China Street. I've never heard of China Street, I have to say. And that's a picture there of Pete Shelley on stage in Alexandra Park as part of the Northern Carnival of Rock Against Racism. That was the same year, just later in the year. 78. Now, the reason we mentioned Pete Shelley, and the reason this sort of comes full circle to this, is that this exhibition, the work that Alex did was all about charting our history and shifting the centre of gravity. It was about linking into our being human idea. It's about having something at lunchtime to disrupt the everyday. One of the things we put over there, actually, I should mention at this point, is there's a little quote behind Matt over there on the wall, where it's from a fanzine called Sniffing Glue. I'm not telling you kids to go and sniff glue. Don't do it. It's not big or clever. But there's a fanzine called Sniffing Glue, edited by Mark Perry. Mark Perry's band, Alternative TV, played the Polly. If you go and look on there, you'll see the band Alternative TV who played there. But Mark Perry put this on the front of his fanzine. There's some dispute about whether he was the person that actually created this. But he put this on the front of his fanzine. Picture of 3 chords. Now form a band. And the idea behind that was anyone can do these sort of things. It's very democratic, much like the notion of the Soho Poly, much like our disrupting the everyday concept is. And what Matt particularly mentioned to me yesterday, what we want people to do is to actually come to these things, get involved in it, but then go and do things themselves. It's not just about Matt and I curating things. It's about people being empowered to go and do something and to take the creativity, take the culture into the everyday experiences. This week's been, in some ways, a revelation, because by digging deeper and creating this arts workshop idea, on Monday we had a brilliant fanzine workshop. If you go in that room, it's part arts workshop, but also a list of some examples of the fanzines we created on Monday. If you look on the wall over there behind me, we had a climate crisis exhibition on a Wednesday, plays about climate crisis on the Wednesday, and Sarah from Greenpeace came and talked about these things, and the archives brought these things up, and lots of the stuff they were talking about on that wall over there, it's exactly the same that Caroline Lucas was talking about with her 10 points on Tuesday about what we should do for the environment. You know, in our radical times of PCL back in those days, our students were saying it already. Yesterday we did the first gig in here for 50 years, around 50 years, 49 years probably, but Martin Stevenson played a fantastic set for us yesterday as part of that. And today it's really tying this all together, the final day. We're all quite tired by the end of it, but about this pop and politics idea. But the spirit of what we're talking about runs through it. Disrupt the day, bring culture into every day, however you want to do it, and take others with you if you can. That's the spirit of what we've been trying to do. There's lots of people to thank but I think I'll do that at the end probably, about who we want to thank about these things. But I'll just tell you the story about Pete Shelley, because what we're going to do now, I'll tell you this little story, then I'm going to give you 10 minutes to have a wander around, look at all these different things on the wall. Get some drinks. Less people arrived than we thought, so there's more drinks for you. And if you're watching this nearby, come down, get a drink, and then Alex is going to play a series of things. Part of this is going to be a tribute to Pete Shelley that I'm going to talk about, or an echo of Pete Shelley, and part of it is an echo or history of the sort of music that was played at the university through that period. And I've given him carte blanche, so it could go anywhere with these things. But no, I've heard his stuff's brilliant. He's sent me a few stuff over and it's going to be fantastic. So it should be really nice. It's a very sociable event. Talk to other people about it. Look around the room. But the reason Pete Shelley is important to this, Pete Shelley died last year. And in fact, he died on the day we did the New Order Ghost gig. And I was really quite ecstatic after the New Order thing. We had about 50 people over in New Cavendish Street. We had a really good event, playing the New Order's gig from the time. And it was really exciting. I came home and heard that Pete Shelley had died. And it sort of almost spoilt the day for me in many ways, because Pete Shelley was really important to me. There's a little story I wrote at the time he died over there, and the first thing I ever bought was Ever Fallen in Love, and that's my copy of it over there. You can go and look at it if you want. Don't steal it. And a little story about that. But back to Pete Shelley. When we were doing this research, we found out that I was told they were radical times. In 1985. The students occupied 309 Regent Street, and they did a proper occupation. They were in there for 2 weeks, and they were occupying all parts of the building, the Vice-Chancellor's office, the boardroom. It's all barricaded up. It's a proper occupation, not one of these kindergarten ones now. It's a proper occupation. And one day during the occupation, there was I don't know if it was really a knock on the door, but some kerfuffle outside, and the students looked out, and it was this rather dishevelled man, who happened to be Pete Shelley, carrying a guitar and carrying an amp, and said, I hear you're occupying the building to try and defend the cuts to courses at the Polytechnic. They went, yeah. He said, can I play some songs for you? And they went, yeah. So he came in. He actually did this in Fyvie Hall. Those of you who know University of Westminster, it's a very, it's not really Art Deco, it's like a really nice ornate building anyway, a really nice ornate room. He went in and he played a number of songs, and then then was gone. Played 5 or 6 songs, 7 songs I think, and then left. So in many ways this is a tribute to Pete Shelley, and some of the Pete Shelley material will form part of Alex's set. Just to go back to the very last thing I'm going to say is that I'm using this line here, mixing pop and politics. You asked me what the use is. I'm using that partly because I'm going to go and see Billy Bragg tonight, partly because this was all about pop, politics and PCL, the thing we started all that time ago. And I think it's an important thing to think about how pop and politics mix, but this was a period of time when pop and politics really did mix. And we're hoping to take this project forward. We want to get all these details online. We want to get people who were at those gigs to tell us stories about it. We want to make it really sort of part of a rich oral history about students that were here, people that were here, and how we helped, not we, but the university helped as part of this. That's me done. We're going to be 10 minutes now just setting up Alex. Get yourself some drinks, have a look round. By all means, ask me any questions if you want and wander around. Make it a social event. Enjoy yourselves and you look forward to a top performance, not just from Alex, from Steve as well. We're going to have a double thing. Yesterday we had Martin, Martin Stevens, who I've known for a long time, and I'd helped with some contract work years ago, turned up, and he brought his fiddler along with him. So we had a lot of, Jonathan was brilliant helping out because we thought, oh Christ, we need a DI box, we need this, we need that, but we managed to sort it out. Jonathan was superb, we were all superb sorting that out yesterday. So go and get yourself a drink, give us about 10 minutes and we'll set up Alex for some tunes from that time. But thanks for listening. And now it's time for me to introduce the guest today. As I said, Alex Hancock, who was a student of ours here until last summer. I'm sure we'd be happy to add that he graduated with a first-class degree in creative writing and literature. Alex was brilliant. In fact, he was brilliant on lots of levels for me because we do a lot of work in law and popular culture where we show films and we do all sorts of other events. And actually, Alex wasn't in the law school with me where I work, but he came to loads of these things. If I was showing some 60s films, we did a series about 1966, 50 years on, and we showed Cul-de-sac, and we showed all these different things. He was turning up to those sort of things. He turned up to all sorts of different events, so he's really interested in popular culture. We had Stuart Lee come and perform, and when Stuart Lee came to perform for the students, he did a talk about creative writing and about some of the issues he's had from a legal perspective for our law and creative writing students. Stuart Lee gave us 2 tickets to give out for students to win in a competition. Alex won that because he sent the best joke in. I don't know if I told him at the time, he was about the only one that set a joke in. So, but it was a brilliant joke anyway, Alex, honestly. He'll tell you that during his set, probably. But as I said, when we started the project to reset the centre of gravity of the music at University of Westminster, we put out an application to students, and Alex applied, and Alex got the job. And Alex did a fantastic job mapping all these events, both in our archives here, both at the archives at Cecil Sharp House, the English Folk Society, the British Library and elsewhere. Did a fantastic job helping us with that. As I mentioned during the talk earlier on, I'm hoping to make this more of a more accessible archive for people, much like the University of East Anglia have a similar one where they map all the gigs that have taken place and people can sort of chip in with their recollections and memories of that. We're hoping to do something like that with it, and I'll talk to Alex about getting involved in that in future. But when we were putting this event together, and I was mentioning to him, oh, I've got this idea, we ought to sort of commemorate Pete Shelley. You know, we ought to do something. It's the day it took place. It's the actual anniversary of Pete Shelley doing this thing. What can we do? And I went home that night, and he sent me an MP3. He'd gone home, and he'd recorded an early Buzzcocks single called I Don't Mind. He sent me an MP3 of it, and it was great. And I sent it on to Matt and said, I think, you know, our final event is pretty much sorted. We'll do a talk about the Pop and Politics project. We'll do a talk that ties into the whole ethos of disrupting the everyday. And Alex, who actually was part of the project, will perform. And perform not just a tribute to Pete Shelley and the stuff that Pete would have played that day, 34 years ago today, over at Regent Street on our main site, but also, with his insider knowledge of all these events that took place here, he could cherry pick tracks that he wanted to play, the tracks that he liked, tracks that he thought were important, and play them here for you today. So I think without further ado, I will call upon Alex to take the stage. We've also got for me, back from the past, Steve Wheeler's come along today. I've not seen him for such a long time. And Steve Brown, sorry, got the name wrong. I don't know what that's in my mind. Steve is the main part of that. Steve Brown's come along today, and he's going to perform with Alex as well for one of the songs, I think. Yeah. So hopefully be in for a treat.
And Josh as well.
And Josh, wow. It's going to be a real... I talked about the democratic nature of popular music. The joining at such a rate, we're all going to be on stage by the end, and the line between performer and audience will be so blurred, you'll feel you're in some sort of 60s. I'm not doing Eton Rifles. I'm not doing Eton Rifles at all. Feel free. You haven't got to sit in your seats while this is going on. You can go and get a drink. Go and do. Feel free to wander about, but listen to what Alex and Steve and everyone's doing, and enjoy. Okay.
Hi to everyone back home watching or at work. Oh shit, I thought you and I were friends. Oh shit, well I guess this is the end. Oh shit, I thought things were going well, but it don't seem to turn out so swell, has it? Oh shit, pride comes before a fall. Oh shit, you lose one, you lost them all. Oh shit, now I guess the time's the time, but it seems that you're no longer mine, don't it? Oh shit, oh shit. Oh shit, I wish I'd known before now. Oh shit, that you were such a cow. Oh shit, I wouldn't have wasted my time. Oh shit, chasing something that could never be mine. Face it, you're shit, you're shit. Oh shit, I wish I'd known before now. Oh shit, that you were such a fucking cow. Oh shit, I won't know, wasting my time. Oh shit, chasing something that could never be mine. Face it, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit. Admit, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit. Thank you. It's called What Do I Get? A bit more guitar, please. More up. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. I see. It's a technical. I just wanna love her like any other. What do I get? I only want a friend who stayed to the end. What do I get? What do I get? Oh, what do I get? What do I get? Oh, what do I get? I'm in distress, I need a caress. What do I get? I'm not on the make, I just need a break. What do I get? What do I get? Oh, what do I get? What do I get? Oh, what do I get? Well, let me tell ya, I only get sleepless nights alone here in my half-empty bed. For you, everything turns out alright. I only wish it happened to me instead. What do I get? Oh, what do I get? What do I get? Oh, what do I get? Guitar solo. I only get sleepless nights alone here on my half-empty bed. But you, everything turns out alright. I only wish it happened to me instead. What do I get? What do I get? What do I get? Oh, what do I get? I just wanna love her like any other. What do I get? I only wanna love her, stay to the end. What do I get? What do I get? Oh, what do I get? What do I get? Oh, what do I get? I only get sleepless nights alone here in my half-empty bed. But you have nothing to tell, alright? I only wish it happened to me instead. What do I get? Oh, what do I get? What do I get? Oh, what do I get? What do I get? What do I get? What do I get? No love. What do I get? No sleep at night. What do I get? Nothing that's nice. What do I get? Nothing at all, at all, at all, at all, at all. 'Cause I don't get you.
This is an early Buzzcocks track from their EP Spiral Scratch, which Howard Devoto from Magazine originally sang on. And Pete Shelley didn't write the lyrics to this, but I think it's one of his best riffs. So this is called Boredom.
You know, I say just what I mean. I say what comes to my mind. You know, I never get around to things. I live in a straight line. You know me, I'm acting dumb. I see the scene very humdrum. Boredom, boredom. Well, I'm living in a movie, but it doesn't move me. I'm waiting for the phone to ring. Ring a fucking ding. You know me, I'm acting dumb. I see the scene is very humdrum. Boredom. Ba-dum. Well, there's nothing behind me. I'm already a has-been. All the future has been past. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm acting dumb. The scene's so very humdrum. Boredom.
Was this the first single that you ever bought? Maybe, I might have the wrong one. It's called I Don't Mind. Have a bit louder guitar. Louder guitar, please. That's good, thanks.
Reality's a dream, a game in which I seem to never find out just what I am. I don't know if I'm human or I am a similar sham. If you don't mind, never mind, I'm lost without a clue. So how could I undo the tangled web I keep weaving? I don't know if I should still believe in deceptive perceiving. If you don't mind, never mind. I used to bet you didn't care. never got me anywhere. Each time I used to be so sure, something about you made me doubt you more. How do not convince me when everything I see just makes me feel that you're putting me down? And if it's true, this pathetic clown will keep hanging around. If you don't mind, never mind. I used to bet you didn't care. The bookies never got me anywhere. Each time I used to be so sure, something about you made me doubt you more. I even think that you hate me when you call me on the phone. And well, when we go out, I wish I stayed at home. Oh, tell me while I'm dreaming, I'm just lying on my bed. Oh, got it in for me. Is it all in my head? Is it in my... How can I convince me when everything I see just makes me feel that you're putting me down? And if it's true, this pathetic clown will keep hanging around. If you don't mind, never mind, never mind.
Thank you. I think this is the first single that Guy bought.
Despite my natural emotions, it made me feel I'm done and I'm hurt. And if I start a commotion, I run the risk of losing you, and that's worse. Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't fallen in love with? Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't fallen in love with? I can't see much of a future unless we find out what's to blame. What a shame. And we won't be together much longer unless we realize that we are both the same. Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't fallen in love with? Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't fallen in love with? You disturb my natural emotions. You make me feel I'm done and I'm hurt. And if I start a commotion, I run the risk of losing you, and that's worse. Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't fallen in love with? Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone? Ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't fallen in love with? Ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't fallen in love with?
I'm stood right next to the PA. I'm just deafening myself as I go along. Everybody happy?
Life's illusion, love is a dream, but I don't know what it is, 'cause everybody's happy nowadays. Everybody's happy nowadays. I was tired of being upset, always wanted something I never could get. Life's illusion, love is a dream, but I don't know what it is, 'cause everybody's happy nowadays. Everybody's happy nowadays. Love's illusion, love's a dream. Life's illusion, love is a dream. Life's illusion, love is a dream. Life's illusion, love is a dream. 'Cause everybody's happy nowadays. Everybody's happy nowadays. Everybody's happy nowadays. Everybody's happy nowadays. You were tired of being upset, always wanted something you never could get. Life's an illusion, love is a dream. Now I know just what it is, but everybody's happy nowadays. Everybody's happy nowadays.
Thank you. I'd like to dedicate that to the students in Hong Kong at the moment who are occupying the university there. Right, we can have a break unless you want to get into the Jonathan Richmond. Josh, do you want to come up? So in 1986 or 87, Jonathan Richmond came and played here with the Modern Lovers, and John Morrison from Frank Sidebottom's band, who wrote the Psychopath Test, The Men Who Stare at Goats. He's quite a well-known documentarian. He was the entertainment secretary at the time, and he put on Jonathan Richmond. So we'll have a go at one of his songs. It's called Egyptian Reggae. Is that?
Maybe that down a little bit.
And Josh, who I'd just like to introduce as my friend. I've known him for a good few years. We've been making music together, usually with sort of ethnic, tribal percussion involved. So this is, we're bringing a little bit of that flavour onto the stage. Okay.
Thank you. Round of applause for Josh on the woodblock. Cheers, mate. Just gonna get some more. Cameraman, have a look around. So this was a space where, an arts workshop, they had music, printing, posters, all kinds of stuff going on. Probably psychedelic drugs as well, but we won't talk about that. And Sid Barrett apparently came down the steps and joined in on a bit of psychedelic fun. This is one of their earliest songs. I think the guy suggested this. To know, what can't you see? don't do it again.
Thank you. So Syd Barrett was a bit of a psychedelic pioneer, you could say, and he played, or Pink Floyd played with Jimi Hendrix, who also performed here. There was another fella called Kevin Ayers who performed in the Soft Machine. And Syd Barrett and Kevin Ayers did a single in the early 70s called Singing a Song in the Morning, which is a great demonstration of Syd's kind of freak beat guitar. And Kevin Ayers came back a bit later in the 70s and performed here, supporting another band. I think they were a sort of heavy rock, kind of Deep Purple-esque type band. But I'm going to do a Kevin Ayers track called Shouting the Bucket Blues. It's supposed to be a clean tone. Bit out of tune. I'm just going to tune up a bit, I think. Sometimes I get too drunk, I feel so goddamn low. I have no place to go, no one to turn to. I think about your loving arms, where I'd like to be, but it's selfish as can be, and I know it. But if I'm sorry for myself, I'm sorry for you too, 'cause I'm the same as you, and I know it. So I sing for everyone who feels there's no way out. Oh, maybe if you all shout, someone will hear you. I would say that I love you, but that would be a lie. I can only say I try, and you know it. Love is something more or less than words can hope to say. It changes day to day with the life I'm living. Others come and lovers go, but friends are hard to find. Yeah, I can count all mine on one finger. So I sing for everyone who feels there's no way out. Oh, maybe if you all shout, someone will hear you. Distance that's between us, it just never seems to change.
There's a whole mountain range of misunderstanding. So I sing for everyone who feels there's no way out. Oh, maybe if you all shout, someone will hear you. Listen to them shout.
Thank you. Steve, are you ready? Should we go and have a little play on the Bert Jansch came down in the early 70s, part of Polyfolk, and I think he played in New Cavendish Street. He was quite a name at the time. But we're going to do one of Bert Jansch's songs, which someone I know has called it the best British song ever written. I'm not sure about that, but we'll have a go. What's that? We're going to gather around here. Okay. Just one mic it, yeah. A round of applause for Steve Brown. He worked here for 30 years, and I worked with him as well for a couple of years, and we often talked about music, folk music particularly, and Bert Jansch. He's actually been on a Bert Jansch guitar course, so he knows all of the licks.
Sadly,
Just get a chair. Are we in tune? Do you know?
I hope so. I'm in tune.
Is that?
The tune.
It's pretty neat.
I think this is why it stays in tune no matter what.
Swing.
And the mic a bit closer.
Not my head.
That happens with the drummer on you actually. Fell off the mic stand in trying to do. Is it flopping around all that place? Let me use that one.
Lose that. That's all right, isn't it?
You haven't voiced.
I mean, you can hear us, can't you? Yeah. Right. Should we count in? Fresh as a sweet Sunday morning, like a high-stepping pony, strutting and prancing. She's so full of light, sparkling with tiny red roses. Let there be music to please her. Let it be sunbright to light up her day. Let the moon light her night and fill her with deep silent sleepiness.
if I were a small bird so tiny, I'd hide in her hair just to be near her, to hear her sweet voice and feel her sweet body beside me. And if I were a high lord of riches, I'd clover and satin from India's far highlands. I would shoe her in gold and invite her to sit at my table. Step out, young lady, come dancing to the sound of sweet music, so gaily come singing. Your beauty so rare is fresh as a sweet Sunday morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, unless you want to stay for another one. We'll have to make it up on the spot now.
Thank you. I've got one more. And this goes back to the 80s when there was an Indian society here. There might well still be, but they had Indian classical performers having gigs here, big events, and unfortunately I can't play sitar, so I'm going to do probably the first British song that had Indian music in it, which is See My Friends by the Kings.
grab my friend. Across the river.
I'm going to use that for all my lectures in future. And theatre history, the arts workshop, the fanzines, come to the Redskins Go Skid, look at the music. Sorry. Wow. Did play here? No, didn't. But that, for those of you who weren't sure, that's a feedback joke. But no, just to say thank you very much. And a couple of little thanks I have to say at the end generally. Is to say, first of all, really to Matt Morrison, who's the guy that discovered this theatre, who we've been doing loads of work with over the last few years. And it's one of those things that you do and you go, why the hell am I doing it? But then you do it and you go, actually, it's a joy to do these sort of things, and they're really important things to do. And the whole disrupt your everyday idea about bringing culture into the everyday is part of what we are about and what we are for. If you look at the handout, we talk about thanking Peter Bonfield, thanking the archives, thanking Jonathan and Leon and everyone who's been here doing these things, thanking Alex and everyone for doing the stuff today. And all week it's been magnificent, to be honest. So we've all earned a well-earned rest and a few drinks, I think, now. But please have a pot around, enjoy yourself, look at the different areas if you wish, have another drink or something to eat. And thank you all for coming. Cheers.